I really enjoy working with the knife tool and the eraser tool, and that's what we're working on next. So I'm going to just kind of show you a few things with it. Um, Working with some basic shapes here, I'll change the colors a bit. Maybe leave that stroke on there. Okay, and then I'll use a star. Maybe something like that. Change the colors a bit. Let's put a different color stroke on it. Something I can see. Okay. And maybe one other shape here. Let's just put a rounded rectangle in here like this. Okay. Just want to see a little bit more of the circle in there behind. Okay. Eraser tool works just straight across like this. You just have you can adjust your brush size. Use your right bracket tool there, and as you cut through these shapes, they just do like that. And it's really pretty fun because these become individual shapes just like that. Having the stroke on the object, you can see there that the eraser divides, just undoing here, the eraser divides both the stroke and the fill and generates a new stroke around the new shape. Now if you double click on the eraser, you can get some other options here. You can change the shape of the brush and the angle of the brush and the size of the brush. And for example, you can turn it into kind of a calligraphy tool. We looked at this in class, where you can do script type. Yeah, it's got a big stroke on it, so it's a little hard to see there. Let's cut down the width of the stroke here and see if that makes it any better. Maybe. Okay, we'll take the stroke off altogether. Now you can see maybe some of the stuff that I'm trying to do there. Okay, it's kind of neat. It goes right across the layers. And where you cut through, it creates a new shape. And even compound kind of shapes like that. It's pretty neat. Now this is just messing around, but I also like using the knife tool. Is also a kind of a fun tool, and it's right there under the eraser. And as you cut across shapes with the knife tool, it just severs the shapes so that they become separate pieces. And it works on multiple layers here again. All right. If you take a shape, let me see if I can separate this one. If you take a shape and fill it with a gradient, the knife tool, it becomes even more fun. I've taken this fade to blue shape here. I think I'll just take the stroke off. And back to the knife tool. Knife tool is up here. Don't get it confused with the slice tool. That's a web tool. Okay, it's a knife tool. and knife through these objects. With the gradient on there, it does some really pretty amazing things. Okay, taking the gradient, and since we're making these shapes from these, right? These are all individual shapes now. It's reassigned the gradient to fit each separate shape. Now, if you take that same gradient and make it a radial gradient, sometimes the effect is even nicer. Let me select it, make a radial gradient out of it, and as I drag my knife around it, you'll get that effect that I was talking about that reminds me of frog eggs. Isn't that neat? Fun to mess around with, and when you deselect, you get a rather interesting looking pattern of radial gradients. Okay, each one is a separate shape that can be pulled out or reassigned to a different color. And you can do other things with it. Okay, all right. So knife and eraser, they can work together as well. They can erase parts of your knifed shapes. Actually, they have to be selected first. Yeah, let's see if that'll work. Yeah. Okay, deselect. Okay, to make this more evident, run this earlier shape under it, and you can see where the you can't really see it too well. Let me make it a lighter color. You can see where all the other things have the eraser and the knife cut through that. Pretty neat. Okay, I'd like for you to do some designs of your own and try to do things that have some sort of planning about them. I'm just kind of demonstrating here very quickly. I'd like for yours to be a little more, I don't know, something. Mine's really not much. Okay. Now, I also wanted to mention that, let me just borrow this and this again. And we did mention this last time we talked. As I have shapes like this, and you can see that they overlap. These tools, the knife and the eraser, work well in tandem with the Pathfinder panel divide. If you select all of these and use the divide function, you can see that what we've got now is each one of these is a separate piece. And we did talk about how this is a very nice sort of practical use for it for screen printing design. In screen printing, colors are not allowed to overlap. They really just need to barely touch. They just need to touch. And so this divide function works really good for that. The knife and the eraser provide new ways to separate these shapes. Let's make sure they're all selected first. Okay, and the eraser will cut straight through all of that stuff and kind of replicates the stroke around these objects over here and make a little bigger eraser. You can see how that's working. I'll undo. Okay. Let me divide them again. And with them all selected, the knife tool, right there with the eraser, we'll divide these even more. For great colors that just touch. There's a little bitty one. Okay, selected it wrong. They all pull apart. Okay, so that's some quick stuff there with the knife and the eraser. There's one other thing I did want to show you. You can do some really pretty amazing things too with type. I'll just do a little piece of type here. Click and drag method, or just click method for doing the type is the quickest way of all. A couple of little things that we haven't talked much about is spacing of type is under the character panel. And if you look for the tracking setting, you can put your type closer to, put the letters closer together, further apart. For many circumstances, type closer together looks good. Okay, so there's with a little bit of type, or a little bit of space taken out. Select the type font, and you may discover that you can't really use your gradients with type. I'm picking my orange gradient, but it doesn't work. Okay, if you will take your type and select it, and let's see, still not selected. Create outlines is what I'm trying to get at here. It's right there under type, create outlines, Shift Command O. Okay, now you'll find that your type will take gradients if you want. Kind of interesting how it works. Each letter has accepted the gradient individually. If you take the gradient tool and drag it over it, it becomes as if they are a single object, going from yellow now to orange. You can take it this way. And that looks pretty good. If you, oftentimes the radial gradient kind of looks interesting too. Now it's a radial gradient on each letter. Again, if you select it, then use the gradient tool across it. You can make it so it's a gradient over the whole, where it's treating the type as one object, going from red to orange here in the middle. Okay, and that's with the radial gradient. Okay, and you can see yellow here in the middle and red on the outside. Now, if you'd use your knife tool on these guys, it can be pretty amazing what happens. Maybe not so amazing. Let me start over and make it more amazing. Okay, I'll fill it with that gradient. And with every letter separate, go over it with the knife. And if you make them radial gradients, they take on a kind of a crazy look. With every little piece now trying to activate the radial gradient. Zoom in on that so you can see what's happening. There's the frog eggs again, this time inside the type. Okay, deselect. You can see it's kind of interesting how that works. Select. Okay, and you'll want to try that too with the knife tool. Eraser tool will work on this too. might be able to do some interesting things with the eraser tool. So just drag across, it takes a swipe out of it. Maybe make the brush a little smaller. And see how that works. Kind of neat. Okay, maybe put some of the color in behind it. Okay, all right. Okay, there you go. Okay, I would like for you to do some of these with the knife and the eraser, like you see here, and try to come up with some things that are interesting and clever and and personal.